they had a swing that went over. We'll walk up to another swing. Movie. But what they did was that was the first time they used the quarries up here that we know of as a movie set. And right behind us, on top of the hill, they built a church. So they had this plywood church, I'll pass it around, and covered up the outside of it with fake sides that look like Quincy granite. So if you were standing here or even like 5 feet away, you'd look at it and you go, wow, it looks like a granite building, like St. Mary's Church or something. But if you dig in there, up there, I see somebody walking around, but up in there in that hill, when they were done with the movie, they bulldozed everything in those days. They didn't have to take it away. Nowadays, when they film a movie up here, if it's on DCR property, the DCR makes them take every nail. They can't leave anything behind, but back in those days, that just bulldozed, and got rid of it. So that's what the church looked like. The only thing that's left of the church is to the side. You see one of these things that they put a statue in, and that was made out of stone, and that's still there. It's knocked over, but if you were to walk around up there, you would see it if you poke around. So I pass this around. That was the inside of the church. Take a look at that, and then here's another picture of it when they were building the church. I'll pass this the other way. So that's when they were building the church. In the quarry we were just in, they made a shanty town in that quarry in there. So what they took was some of these old railroad cars that you see here, and they made them so that people were living in them. If anybody had ever seen that movie too, Gone Baby Gone. So, the Cardinal movie, I think it's about 3 hours long. So all the work that they did up here at that period of time, I think there's maybe less than 10 minutes that they show up here. They built a church, they built a village over there where we were at in the Granite Roadway Quarry, and maybe 10 minutes at the most they shot up here. Okay, we'll walk up this way to the next crosswalk, and then I'll stop there because I'll talk about the quarry that was over there. On this side, there was a quarry, and it was owned by John Horrigan. So it was called Horrigan and Dean. And people might know Horrigan. He was very famous for this monument that's in Washington, D.C. It's the Titanic Memorial Statue, and that's a picture of him cutting the statue at his stone shed down on Federal Ave. But he had a quarry back here. He owned it with a fellow by the name of Dean. He also had quarries down in Westerly, Rhode Island. And the reason being is you couldn't really use Quincy granite for statutory work, because you can see the feldspar, the minerals in it. Sometimes it would be like a black dot, and you wouldn't want to do a beautiful woman and have this big black dot on your nose or something. So the Westerly granite was very fine grained. It was a much better granite. I think this is a picture of it completed. They wouldn't do it in France. This was done around, I forget, 1916 or so, around that period of time. And it was a memorial to the men who went down on the Titanic to save the women and children, or as many as they could. And the French wouldn't do it. It was supposed to be done in France, and the French wouldn't do it because they said, oh, there's no way we can do that in one piece because the arms will break off when they ship it. Well, Horrigan did it in one piece. Down there, shipped to New York, and then it ended up in Washington, D.C. on the Potomac River. There's a memorial there. So his quarry was back there. Probably nothing left. If you were to walk back there, the quarry was up here a little bit. I think that Quirk now has it like part of his parking lot. So it was up this way a little bit more, but I stopped here because it's crosswalk. So we're gonna go across, then we'll go up a little more, and I'll talk about a couple of quarries that were on that side once we got into the other side. This was Horrigan's.
Okay, they stopped.
He and Horrigan. Ball fields now. But if you were to walk up this road here where the parking lot is, there was a quarry up there, and it was originally owned by this fellow. and his name was Charles Clements. So Charles Clements was born in 1856 in Zanesville, Ohio. He came to Boston in 1885, and in a partnership with a fellow by the name of William Townsend, he operated a quarry, this one up here in West Quincy, that later became the property of John Cashman. So a lot of people know Cashman, J. Cashman, the contractor. That was his uncle. So Mr. Clements was also an importer of granite from around the world. And one of the things that a lot of people don't know about him, but his claim to fame was he perfected the early use of color lithography for advertising. I'll show you a picture. This place here. Oh, here it is. Here's a picture of the quarry. That's a picture of what his quarry looked like. I'll pass that around. I'll pass this one around this way. And that's one of his advertisements. That's the color lithography that he perfected. So that was Clements, and that quarry was right up the top of the hill up here. Now when John Cashman took it over, Cashman was a contractor, and he basically was quarrying the stone, and they were using it for such things like this, like bridge work. So this is a picture of the bridge that was on Furnace Brook Parkway. So that stone for that bridge came from this quarry. But there's this little story here about it. It says this was 1902 when John Cashman owned the quarry. There has been an almost constant stream of heavily loaded stone teams passing through City Square towards Brackett's Wharf. So they were going by railroad, then they were getting down to the other section of the railroad, going down to Brackett's Wharf. And the granite was being loaded onto sloops and taken to Nut Island, where the sewer breakwater is being built. That now being teamed is from the John Cashman Quarry, who has a contract for 6,000 tons of stone. So he's the one that supplied the stone for that breakwater at Nut Island.
Any idea where?
Yeah, you know, there's where you go under, there's a bridge now that goes under the expressway on Furnace Brook Parkway. It's there. It's not that bridge anymore, obviously. You know, they built a new one. I think they used to call it the Echo Bridge, you know, before my time. But he did a lot of them. Those bridges were made out of stone from this quarry. So
That was made with this stone no longer exists.
No. Much of what we're looking at today no longer exists. I mean, we have to use our imagination in the pictures. None of these quarries, that quarry still exists, and we went to Berry's quarry, but you have to use your imagination to, you know, see the derricks that were around it and the railroad tracks, and, you know, obviously, you know, it's all been, it's commercial property, it's worth so much money. There aren't even any stone sheds left in Quincy. You talk to the guys that have stone sheds, they go, I can have a stone shed anywhere. He says, this property's worth too much money for a stone shed. Put an apartment building or a condo here. So we'll walk up to the next break up here. There was another famous quarry, and it was owned by McDonald and Sons. Now, if you're from West Quincy and you go to St. Mary's Church, and I don't know if you've ever been behind the church, there's a beautiful monument back there. It's a big, tall column, and they have the Blessed Virgin Mary on the top of it. That's the McDonald Monument. Now, Thomas H. McDonald, I'll read a little story, then I'll pass it around. McDonald and Sons was founded by Patrick McDonald, an Irish immigrant, in 1857. Not sure when he came over from Ireland, but he founded the company in 1857. His son, John Quincy McDonald, took the reins in 1881 when Patrick retired. John moved to Buffalo, New York with his wife Emily and 7 children to expand the family business. He opened up a branch in Buffalo. They also had operations in Barry, Vermont, a quarry up in Barry, and they had the quarry here, and their stone shed was down as you come down Quarry Street, almost down to Quincy Center. Well, Thomas H., one of the sons, Thomas H., he stayed in Quincy to oversee the operations of this quarry and the stone shed, and the Barry sheds too. He was actually overseeing that too. But in 1893, Thomas becomes an investor in the Quincy Quarry Company, Quincy Quarry Railroad. And he becomes president of the Quincy Quarry Railroad, and he became a director of the Lions Turning Wheel, where we were going to go up to. His brother John ended up dying in 1894. He was in Buffalo. When he died, his wife Emily, I have a picture of her here, I'll pass this around. his wife Emily took over the business. Very unusual for a Victorian era lady to do that. She actually took the business over. She had to. She had 7 kids, mouths to feed, and you know, the brother-in-law was probably helping out somewhat with the money, but wasn't enough. So she was successful. She took it over, and they ended up staying in business, I think, until 1910, 1911, whatever, and then it was sold out. So as I said, the McDonald family monument in St. Mary's Cemetery is probably one of the finest examples of Quincy monuments from that era. It was done with pneumatic tools, obviously, at that period of time, but you go take a look at it and you see how beautiful it is. It's really nice. I can pass this around. So that's Emily on the bottom. The other thing I'll read while you're looking at that is it says, here's a little story. It says, the Quincy Quarry Railroad Company, Thomas H. McDonald, president, and Bonomi Clark, treasurer, has declared a dividend of 6% on its entire capital of $175,000. The company has been in existence about 2 years now, and in active operation about a year. So this was 1896. During that time, it has done a business of over $3 million and is at present shipping 50 carloads of granite daily. The company is furnishing stone for the improvements being made on the New Haven Railroad and other roads in Massachusetts. So that was a little story, and then there was another one here. This one here talks about the opening in 1894 of the railroad. It said the line to the Quarry District opened yesterday. This is August 29th. It opened up on a small scale. The Quincy Quarry Railroad, a branch line from West Quincy Division of the New York, New Haven, and Hartford Railroad, which extends into the Quarry District up here of West Quincy, was opened yesterday. The first load of rough stone for monumental purpose was shipped from Berry Brothers, the first quarry we visited down there on the right. And the first car of finished work came from Elcock & Sons. That's the parking lot that we started off in. The road will prove a valuable addition to the quarry interests of the city and will open up lots of quarry land that was before inaccessible. The road was built and will be run by Quincy Capital and by men who are all interested in the granite business in this city. Miss Lillian T. Harlow of Quincy held the throttle of the engine on the trip yesterday, and Miss Georgiana Lane, another Quincy girl, rode on the engine on the the first trip the day before. My English isn't that great. So, yeah. Here's the other guy they talked about. This is Bonomi Clark. So Bonomi Clark, this guy was quite an investor. He was the director and vice president of the Lyons Granite Company. He was one of the incorporators of the Quincy Quarry Railroad. He was the incorporator and director of Prout Brothers Quarry. Prout Brothers Quarry was the last quarry that was on this railroad, and I think it's a water hazard now at Granite Links. So this guy also owned a liquor warehouse on Nealman Street in Boston. And when there was a story, I don't have the story with me, but I can remember it good enough that when that other story, when they opened up the line, they had this huge banquet at the turning mill where we were going to, and they set up tables, and they had oysters, they had everything. I think he supplied the booze. He had the liquor warehouse. So they had a train load that left from South Station in Boston, and it was loaded up with the railroad commissioners and important people in Boston, and it came and it stopped at the West Quincy station. And by the way, when in South Boston, in South Station, the Boston Cadet Band was on one of the cars, and they played music on the car. That band played music the entire trip from South Station to West Quincy. They stopped, the Quincy dignitaries got on, and then they took the railroad and went up to the terminal, and they had this huge banquet up there. So it says that this guy here, he was, in 1899, they said he was one of the heaviest taxpayers in Quincy due to his real estate holdings and other businesses he had. So he's somebody that a lot of people don't even talk about that much. One other thing I'll talk about here, and it's not quarry related, but it's kind of family related to me. If you walk up this road, on the left there's a parking lot, and there's a chain link fence there, and there's a foundation for a building there.
Clark.
I can tell this story now because a long time ago I was always involved in the history. I was with the Friends of the Blue Hills and their quarry museum. The state archaeologists, when they were doing this golf course, they had to use the state archaeologists, and they had to go around and determine if there were any historic sites that had to be preserved that they couldn't fill. So there are a couple of them that they saved. on the parking lot, if you went up the other road that we were at the top of the parking lot in the woods, there's still remnants of a couple of granite buildings that were part of Cashman's operation. And they fenced them off. You'll see a little fence around it will say historic resource area, just like the Turner don't touch. Well, there's one back here too. So I'm down at the Granite Rail Quarry where we were at the graffiti quarry one day. I'm on my bicycle. I used to ride my mountain bike up here. And Tom Malstad was a friend of mine. He was the state archaeologist. He saw me. He was in the truck. He goes, "Oh, Tom," he goes, "I got something to tell you." He goes, "We just found I think it's a superintendent's house for the quarry." I says, "You did?" I go, "Wait." He goes, "You know where the water tower is?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Right there. It's right down in front of it." And I go, "Well, let me meet you up there and let's verify it." So we go up there and I looked and I go, "Well, you know, that's not the superintendent's house." He goes, "What is it?" I said, "That's the Oaks cabin." He goes, "What are you talking about?" I said, "There was a cabin that was built up there back in 1937. My father, my uncles, all the Irish guys that they lived with in West Quincy, the Murphys, Peckinnon, Herbie Peckinnon, all of these guys, back when they were kids, built this cabin. It was in the woods. And they learned their trade. A lot of them were working the WPA, so they learned how to work with stone. So that's a picture of the cabin. So this cabin existed from 1937 up until the 1950s. This picture was taken in 1950 by my father. They used to have parties up here. Before the war, they used to hang around up there. Obviously, they were drinking and partying and stuff like that. But they'd have clam bakes. That's the fireplace, and they'd be cooking clams and whatever they had up there. The politicians used to come up here. They had huge parties. Now remember, this was nothing but woods here. There was just dirt roads coming up here. I mean, it was like you were going like into the middle of the Blue Hills or something.
Did they preserve it?
Well, there's just the foundation is there. That's about it. There's nothing else left. But what happened was, because he thought it was the superintendent's house, he goes, and he's dead, so I can tell the story. He says, "Don't tell anybody this." He goes, "But we spent $10,000 to fence that in." He goes, "We thought it was a historic site." They go, "Well, it is a historic site. It's part of West Quincy history." So, but anyhow, it's still there. And when we were kids, we used to like dig around up there because my cousin Jimmy and me, we grew up here, and other kids in the neighborhood. We go, "Oh, that was our father's old cabin." So we used to go up there and we'd poke around and find old beer cans. You know, and they looked like dry gas cans in those days, like with the screw top. But they fenced it in, so it will always be there. Otherwise, it was going to be a bigger parking lot. So,
Do you have memories of going to the cabin?
well, no, the cabin was gone by the time I was born in '54. But in that picture that I'm passing around, my sister's in that picture, so I dated the picture by her. She was 2 years old. My aunt's in that picture, and I recognize some of the people, but the kids are still alive. All the kids that are in the pictures are older than me. They'd be 70s and 80s. But I've got a lot more pictures than that. My father, I just took out a couple, but yeah, most of them were
recently
gone.
went by it,
Huh?
I think, and I saw the fence.
Sally told me that the other day, and I didn't have the picture Friday. And I said, "Well, I'll tell you the story about it." But I didn't have. I said, "I'll take a picture tomorrow, when I come up here today." But yeah, so like I said, it was nothing but woods up here. And it was one of the early cabins. I mean, they have them all over the place now. They have clubs, social clubs. I guess you'd call it a social club. They had a fireplace in there. I mean, it was. If you see some of the pictures of the inside, it was all wood paneled. They had like. The sports flags, the pennants they used to get in those days, they were hanging all over the place. There was the 30s, the 40s. A lot of them went off to war. Some of the guys didn't come back, obviously, but the ones that did come back, they got married, they had kids. There's all the kids. They had the playpen up there while they were having the cookouts, playing the accordion. So they had a great time. So we're going to have one more stop, and then we'll be at the tournament. So we'll walk up here. Wait till everybody gets it. Then we'll go over to the building. We're going to have to stay here. People are coming in here. Watch out, Carol.
Yeah. Crazy stuff.
So, in this area here, there was another quarry. It was called Blue Hill Quarry. Here's what it looked like. Here's the picture I'll hand it around. This one here was owned by a guy by the name of Alexander Falconer. And here's a picture of him right here. And it's kind of interesting. This picture, I'll read it down, pass around. It says, "The quarry of Falconer and Company will show that at least one man in the business is not afflicted with the white plague. and does not have to wear out his best $4 shoes by walking over the rocky roads among the quarries and shops. He invites all out-of-towners to take a ride with him when they are in Quincy. Some say there is no money in the granite business. Does this look that way? So there's this car that he had. I think this ad is from 1909. So he's got this car, and many people that were buying granite, there were dealers that came from the Midwest and everything, and they're buying granite. They would come into Quincy Square. They would stay at the Robertson Hotel, which was downtown Quincy Square, and then they would go from there and work their way up here if they wanted to see the quarries. But most of the deals were being done in Quincy Square. The Granite Railway Company had offices downtown Quincy Square, as did the owner of the Lions Turner Mill, Robert, last owner. He had offices down there. But this guy here, you know, come on, get in my car, I'll take you for a ride. There's a little extra. Back in those days, not too many people had cars, so the thrill seekers would want to take the ride up here on these rocky roads. So that quarry was the Blue Hill Quarry. That became part of the Quincy Quarry Company, as did many others. So when we go to the tournament, I can even talk about that more than these tournaments. If you go on our website, I did do a story. I didn't print it out for everybody because it's about, I don't know, 10 pages long. But it's on our website. You can look at it for free, or you can print it out for free. It's not copyrighted or anything. And it's pretty much a little bit more of the story about the Quincy Quarry Railroad. I gave you different parts of it that weren't in here. But it has some of the same pictures in here, some of the same stories. So I'll leave this up if anybody want to just look through it, they can look through this one. So now we'll go up to the tournament. What are you going to do? I mean, you go to buy something. Some of the stuff is getting better, because I do buy things that half the price.
Like that.
That's right.
We're a member-driven organization. We don't get any support from really any place.
So the museum, probably about 6 or 7 people can go in there without bumping into one another. It's small, so there are other artifacts out here. Walk around. I can go around with people and show them things, whatever, you know.
And then when you're done, you can find your way back to your car.
Yep.
Down the hill, unless you parked up here, which I think Annalie did.
Yep.
And if you have any questions about
at the West Quincy Depot, well, the original sign is on the side of this building that we were able to fly save. So that was the sign. You can see in that picture that I passed around that was down on West Quincy. And actually, here's another picture. I'll put a picture up here. The picture he put is kind of squeezed together. But that was the signs that they had at all the different depots. That's an original one. That's not a reproduction. Although the colors look like they were reversed. At one time, I think it was a green background with white letters, according to the picture that you see. But if you look at that closely, you can't see it from here, but in the corner of each letter, there's a little nail. It's a little square cut nail. And in those days, what I was told was, when they want to repaint the sign, they just held the straight edge nail. They went from nail to nail with the straight edge on the brush. So so always the font stayed the same. Nobody ever could change the font because they had to follow the nails of the nail. But that was the original sign. That was acquired by one of my neighbors when they tore the station down. Harry Buckley, who collected all kinds of antiques and ended up in his yard. He died. His next door neighbor, Russell Peterson, took the sign and he had it on his shed. And then people were driving by and somebody wanted to buy it. They said, "You want to buy this railroad memorabilia?" And he was afraid it was going to get stolen, so he took it down. He donated it to the Friends of the Blue Hills Quarry Museum. And when Dave Hodgkins passed away, his girlfriend Judy Clapp called me because I used to work with him, and she said, "Well, I've got all the stuff that you and Dave collected back in the 80s or 90s or whatever." Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's a heavy sign. It wasn't anything fancy, but I think they had them at all the depots.
That building, is that the same building as Mary Lou's, or what's the same?
Well, yeah, you know something? It is. The building behind it. That's the same building. So the depot was pretty much where Beyondi's is, in that area there.
12 or 13 years older than her.
You know what? You on the computer?
I am.
You know, that's the information we'd love to